And when we first got there, this woman actually spoke to us about the cooperative. And when we were getting our history lesson at the beginning, they were talking about women in Nicaragua and how they're known as being strong women because there's a lot of single motherhood, and because, I guess kind of because of the revolution, the whole country is united through that, and we saw so many statues and posters of the man Sandino, who took over when the dictatorship was there, and that just united them. We had heard that history lesson, and then we were going to see the co-op, and I was thinking in my, Western thought of like, oh, a man is going to talk to us who's probably like the president of the co-op. We got there, and this woman, who was a secretary in the board of the co-op, spoke to us so passionately and with such great knowledge that it just blew me away how I just saw that in person, how like it's not a factor if you're a man or a woman there, which is something that even though it has been fought for here and worked for, it's still a part of our culture that the man is, the alpha male, and just seeing that and seeing her was one of the more impactful things for me. It wasn't the fathers that came and took you to the house, it was the mothers, and just the involvement they had, and like how proud they were of the co-op and what was happening there. Was the Building the Houses project. Their goal is to build 125 simple but decent houses, and they already had 50 built, and it was just great to see. And the question always came up when we were speaking to people from the co-ops of what are your hopes for the co-op and what do you see in the future, and they all just had amazing visions for what was coming. And sometimes you hear that and you're like, well, that'd be nice to happen. Like you ask what you'd like and you say world peace, kind of that thing. But this was like, when they said building 125 houses, we were like, oh yeah, that'd be great. And they're like, we already have 50 built. And so they're already involved with it, and the community is just so involved in the schooling for the children and housing and every aspect of surviving, living, and connecting. It was just really great to see up front, like we're the coffee drinkers meeting the farmers. It was really impactful. And then we went to this man's farm, Martin, and he is a part of a different co-op, and he is an all-organic farmer he's actually one of like the prominent ones in all of the co-ops. Like farmers come to him to get training on how to farm organically, and he was farming organically before he got his certification for like 7 years. And one quote that just really struck me from that was, he said, being an organic farmer isn't just something you do, you have to change your ideas and your thoughts about farming to become an organic farmer. You can't just go through the process. And he was just so proud of everything he had and how his family has struggled for their land because there are big, huge coffee companies directly next to him, surrounding him and his land, and he had to fight for 7 years in court to keep his land and to take back what they had taken from him. And they're not growing organically, so he has to put up all these barriers of like rows of coffee to like absorb all the chemicals so they don't get to his. And it was just so amazing. He had an area for livestock and an area of growing fruit trees, and everything was self-sustaining on the land. They don't have to go out to get anything, any food, anything. He grows everything there. He also makes his own fertilizer there from his all-organic farming of like the remains from the coffee cherries. He had a wet mill there, and it was just amazing to see, and he was so proud of it. And just, I think the biggest thing was that we took from this experience is like, you can't, like, you feel for the people that are in this situation, but you're not just going to give them $1 million and walk away. That's not, like, that's why Lutheran World Relief, it was a cool talk we got from them about incorporating the community. And one of the major things that we had discussed in like the wrap-ups at the end of the trip was, one thing we can do is respect them. And it was really great to go on this trip because it's hard to respect a faceless thing. Like, you buy the coffee and respect fair trade, but going there and seeing that and knowing the work that goes into one cup of coffee is like it's just brings it home. And every time, like buying anything, and knowing that the amount of work that goes into everything.
One of their key vision statements is that they envision a world where all people live in justice, dignity, and peace. And that was, I kind of saw that when we were at the homestay, and the daughter, Darlene, was just moved into her house, and she was telling us about how she'd got a loan to buy this house for $200, and that's a fairly cheap house there for them. But it was just, you could see how this was helping her to maintain her dignity, because she was paying it back. So she wanted to buy her house. So they don't want it to just be handouts from people. Lutheran World Relief really stresses the accompaniment model that they use with all their programs, where they're just not throwing money at them, and they're working with them to find out what these farmers want and the things that they need. Because if we're all sitting around here in the United States thinking, oh, what do they want? Oh, they probably want all the things that we have. It's a totally different culture, and it works so much better when they're working with these people to see what they need.
What is their main message they want us to know here? To buy a certain type of coffee, or what is it they really want us to know and practically do?
First of all, they all said respect and knowing what goes into it, and buying fair trade and spreading the word of fair trade and trying to get as many people to know about it as possible was
just a really big advocacy push with them.
We have a table in the back, so one of the things, those of you who want to take some home, there's some fair trade coffee from Latin America, there's some chocolate from Latin America. You buying it to help the farmers, that's from Messiah. And if you move around the Upper Peninsula, one of the things that Sarah and Lisa are going to try to do is encourage churches to do this in their basements. Because then you're linking, see, this justice piece with, I loved your 5 principles, huh? That protecting child labor, not selling below minimum wage so they're not losing money.
So it's just what better way to connect the church to these countries in
fantastic.
It's just really, how much coffee do you drink? A lot. I mean,
now here's what I want to do to close here. I want you to give them some input, something you're going to carry out of the night. Anybody, just something you're going to carry away from this presentation tonight?
Well, I guess one thing is that fair trade is important, even though it's tough on our pocketbooks sometimes.
Yeah, it's a little tough on us.
Fair trade coffee, if you go next door to Messiah Lutheran Church, is sold at cost. So there are some churches that are doing it that way. This is a ministry. We're helping this program of fair trade.
I'm so happy that these girls got to go and experience this, because like you had said, to get to know these people and to talk with them one-on-one is so different than reading a book or hearing a story about it.
Right.
This will impact your life forever.
Thank you. First time into for Sarah out of the country. She'll always remember that.
And Lisa, you've been in China?
I've been in China.
She's been in China.
Well, I'm just thinking about how great it's going to be for you to give this talk to any church who invites you.
Yes.
I mean, it really touched me.
I just say it inspired me to do something like this in my future. Go to some other country where people need help and help them. So.
Anybody else? One last one before we go down.
I'm John's wife, and I had the same thing about the coffee. Okay, the church is selling coffee from down there, and we were down with Sam in Costa Rica, and I knew there was some, but it makes it all different this way.
It makes it all different.
I didn't know there were co-ops.
It makes you feel good. But I want to call on Erica now. I'm going to have you guys sit down for a minute and ask Erica to come up. Erica's got 2 gifts. First of all, that she's going to present on behalf of our ministry here.
These go to each of Sarah's grandmothers.
Yay!
A thank you for making it here.
And making the
So we have one for Lois and one for Dora Jane.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right.
And it's some lovely bread made by the same baker from the Bread Today. And he's part of our Lutheran Campus Ministry community. He does a lot with us, so it should be delicious.
We had a marvelous thing happen. We had a very, very tough year to close our little ministry. We still got a couple weeks to go here to pay all our little light bills. We're coming very close though. Pastor Van Clay from Messiah said there's a group going into Colombia. Helen will be part of that group, and Fred will be part of this group. And I had met Erica, who's a nursing student at Northern, and I thought, geez, you know, would that ever be nice to go with 2 physicians, nursing student, plus a small group? And I made a phone call last week to her home parish, and they are putting up basically half the cost of her going, and then there was another gift, and we did it. And so in about a month, this woman, young woman, nursing student, is going into Colombia.
Wow.
With Fred and Helen and a group of 6 others. So let's give Erica a hand.